At the time being 6:01 on 25th of January, we call this meeting to order. Announcements. This meeting is being recorded. Anyone intending to make an audio or video recording of this meeting should notify the chair at this time. Hearing none. This committee has a vacancy for a Kingston resident. If you or anyone else that you know may be interested, please reach out to Kingston's Finance Committee. You can reach them by email at fincom@kingstonma.gov. That's FINOCOM@kingstonma.gov. Anybody else have any announcements? Hearing none, I'm going to take out of order. Going to go over the capital improvement plan first, but we're going to go straight to the presentations, and I'm going to award this in order of the people who spend the least. So Marie, you are incentivized or rewarded, I should say.
Okay.
So I'll let you go first.
So what do I do?
You
I
discuss the phone system. I know we have some changes there.
Okay, so why I'm asking for this money is our phone system is at end of life. And Mitel is no longer supporting. If it breaks, it's done.
Who is that that's not no longer supporting?
Mitel,
How's that?
Mitel is the maker of our phones, our servers, phone servers.
You know how that's spelled?
MITEL.
MITEL. Okay.
So the phones on the desks don't need to be replaced. It's just the hardware that's it's file server, so to speak. It will replace the phones townwide in all town buildings.
So it's connected in the
So
network.
we have 4 phone servers throughout the town, the townhouse, the police department, the fire department, and the library. These will all be replaced with virtual servers. It's in the packet. I believe everybody got the packet.
If one of the 4 servers were to break and if during fiscal 25, there would be no service on
Replacement.
that. It can't be fixed. So it's just frankly getting the useful life. And so, you know, just an upgrade we have to make sure our phone system works.
And all our dispatch goes through that.
Yes,
That's life or death.
yes.
Well, yes, there are Mitel phones on desks. I don't want to get into, I don't know if we need to get into the whole 911 thing, but
That would cover a business lines.
yes.
It just last night, for instance, the system has some quirks. And we had a victim of a crime that was up at the mall. And the officer was trying to speak with the party and had him call back to the station. And for some reason, all the phone lines that were coming into one particular line were being forwarded to the victims of the crime's phone. So, you know, we had to, go through a lot of hoops to have it, not the calls not being forwarded. So every couple of months, we have some issues of quirks with something like that. So, it is something that needs to be addressed. If you're trying to call the police station, you don't want to be, the phone being answered by the victim of a crime.
No, certainly not. They've got enough to deal with. So the 911 goes through, is that like a state or
Yeah,
county?
The 911 is a different
Yep.
phone system.
Okay.
So what I'm talking about is the business lines.
Yep.
And that's the phone or the server, that's the server, right? That's
Server,
the-
not the phone themselves.
This all include the schools or is that separate?
No, the schools are not included. They have their own phone system.
And why is the second proposal we received last week significantly less than the one that was in the original packet?
So we have been waiting for a hard number from the company that we purchased the Mitel phone system from. We had heard a year or so ago, it's about $80,000. We asked for a formal quote, knowing we had to go in front of the capital planning committee, and the funding was going to be requested in fiscal 25. They provided us a quote, which I think you have. The actual quote was dropped from 80 to the $60,000 number. Um, When we don't have a quote, oftentimes I'll estimate a little bit high just to make sure there's no issue with not having sufficient funding, that we have the hard number, we have to drop it to the actual number.
And we're going from a Mitel system to a Mitel system.
Yes,
Is there any concerns that they didn't serve, they're not supporting that? That they're quitting support too soon on the old system? In other words, this isn't a habit of theirs. It's like a 20-year-old or 30-year-old.
Not that old, no,
Okay.
but
It's normal in the industry.
Now it's technology.
it's technology
is
that has
obsolete.
changed,
Yep.
so it's becoming virtualized now.
When you say virtualized, is that in the cloud?
Yes,
Are there any concerns with it being living off in the ether someplace?
no, because we're still going to have parts of it at each site also.
I wasn't sure if something happens in the virtual world that we lose everything.
No.
What did you say the cost reduction was?
From 80 to 60.
Well,
Basically, when we estimated it last year, we estimated it based on a quick conversation with the vendor, who wasn't
Oh,
quite
yes.
sure what the price was gonna be. We had spoken and they thought it was gonna be closer to the $75,000 to $80,000 number. This year, we actually got an actual quote because we do intend to replace it for fiscal 25. And the quote we have, will be honored after July 1st.
sorry to have you repeat that. I have to write the notes for the minutes. Does anybody else have any other questions? Okay, well, thank you, Murray.
Really quick.
It was easy.
Before we find some more questions in these
That's right.
packets.
Well, if you do, you can always ask, but I believe that this explains most of everything that is needed. And then I'll go back to my server.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank
All right, that means you're up, police chief. You spend the next least amount.
I'm just here requesting basically the annual replacement of 2 police vehicles. This has basically been an ongoing, commitment that the town's made just to keep the emergency vehicles, in good shape. Right now, I do have 3 vehicles on order. I haven't been able to get them yet because Ford has got numerous recalls ongoing right now. They're saying that they'll be able to correct the issue. They're saying within the first quarter of this calendar year, which would be great. It would help us out significantly with our repair line item. There's a cost for that are, out of control right now. So we're running with kind of an older fleet with a lot of miles on it. And again, the approval, tonight or at the Springtown meeting will be for vehicles that we won't get for another 12 to, 18 months. So we're trying to forecast what the need is going to be in the future, just based on what's going on now.
And you're replacing 2?
2 years.
2 as usual.
And then one of the ones too that we'll be replacing this spring, we have slated to be retrofitted to go to animal control. She's driving a 2015 now with about 110,000 miles on it.
Mhm.
So we have, that built in too, in last year's quote. And again, we're just waiting to, flip over a car that isn't, totally that will give more serviceable life to the animal control.
Michael, are you familiar with the police department's vehicle replacement schedule?
Yeah, I was gonna ask if you wouldn't mind. It's my first run through this part of the process. Just what's your overall fleet size and how long do the
The
cars
fleet
go?
is in, I can show you that right here.
Am I on the wrong-
I think it may be missing a truck, but
Yeah, so, when we start this process, it's back in September, October. I didn't have it then, so that's why it's not on here, and I just, didn't think to submit a, updated one here to, that to reflect, that. But, usually, the cars are kept somewhere, between 8 to 10 years. You replace 2 a year. And, you're trying to, replace the black and white cars of, the 911 responding vehicles. And a lot of times we'll take an older, black and white car and have it painted a solid color and then pass it down to the detectives or the, lieutenants, just so, again, they're not, usually responding to 911 calls, and you get a longer life, and that's how we're able to stretch, having cars that can serve a useful purpose for the police department, up to like a 10-year period.
And then, as you said before, a lot of the vehicles that are still usable, but shouldn't probably be accelerating the way they would under certain circumstances, get handed down to, like, animal control, relabeled. It's a good way to use them. And the two of these here, I think I read were hybrids again.
Yes.
Yeah, so we're also switching over to hybrid models, which, for your information, remember, keep this in mind. I think we determined, I think you said 40% of the policeman's time they're idling.
Yeah.
Maybe 60% if they're really doing a lot of traffic duty or something.
Okay.
So that engine, of course, it's going to shut off. No moving parts, no exhaust, no fuel being burned, and when he needs to go, you can go. I'm sure there's a button in there that you can get faster immediately. I know in the
No,
it's more new. I have a 2012 hybrid.
Yeah, the car, it's just all automatic.
Okay.
The other thing about the hybrid, people are concerned about, like warranties and stuff on the batteries and replacement. So the cars will come in with a warranty of 100,000 miles or 8 years. So if the hybrid, battery needs to be replaced in that time period, and that's about as long as we would keep a car to be covered under a warranty.
Yeah. And the other thing is, for those of us who've been out, I've gone out 2 years to look at the cars. When you see a car and it says, well, we're replacing it, it's 90,000 or it's 100,000 miles, you think it's basically a Ford Explorer. Some of those go 200,000 or more. When you look at the vehicle, it's got a lot of wear and tear that you can't tell until you get up close. I mean, just how the seats get beat up when I'm sitting in there.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid of risk. I'm afraid of, the ergonomic issue where people are sitting there are going to get sciatica, back pain, workers' comp claims, because there's pieces of metal that everything kind of like the interior and the cushioning gets torn away, and you can see just pieces of metal that their backs rubbing against. So,
We have replaced seats and stuff like that, so, but again, you can keep a car going forever. It's just how much money do you want to sink into it? And when it's no longer cost effective to do that,
Sounds good.
any other?
How's the acceleration in a hybrid compared to gas?
they're actually faster.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. I'm not a car salesman, but I have seen, I think one of the emails that I forwarded the town administrator, I don't know if you got it, has all that information in it that has, it's like right from the factory. It's like a 30 or 40 page document that goes into all the specifics and the, how fast they accelerate, what the fuel economy is, ballistic door panels that are incorporated in it, the wiring now that's incorporated into the initial purchase, so it's not being done later aftermarket. So you're having less issues, with the electronics later. So.
And that's all of the vehicles that are available for you to choose from are in a state database, right? So they're pre-approved by the state for police service.
Well, they're specifically designed for police.
Yeah.
So if you went to the local Ford dealership and bought an Explorer, that's not the same vehicle that the police would get.
Mhm.
The police have different transmissions, different cooling, radiators, the brakes are
Down to
different.
that level too.
Yeah,
Wow.
so it's, that's why they're called, police interceptor. It's just the old name that they've kept.
Mhm.
And it's, a vehicle specifically designed for the police services. I know the state of Michigan is constantly rating these, the same thing with California. So they're the states that, bring out all the, vehicles that are made by Ford and Chevy and Dodge's making a few as well. They, rate them and basically plus that, they meet the criteria of what we're looking for. As far as the cost, they're on the, different bids, that are, available to us at the state level. The, bid it's on this, I believe it's the Plymouth County bid. And they do have an inflation factor built into it, they thought maybe a 3% increase over what the current bid is and what it might be in the future. Next year, because again, we stopped this process in one fiscal year, and you're trying to anticipate what the cost of the equipment is and the possible increase that Ford will be having as well. So, the salesman was pretty confident that a 3% increase would, cover, increases that are anticipated. And if it doesn't, then whichever the chief in the future will have to make some decisions about what he's gonna get with the money that was allotted. You might have to cut out some bells and whistles.
Mm.
So,
Is there any push to go all electric, like from the state or anything like that?
no, that would be like very impractical for police service. I
Yeah.
mean, it's hard enough now trying to maintain, a fleet that's gas. So you're at a crime scene and now you gotta worry about the car that's outside now shutting down a road, has to go back in and be charged.
Mhm.
It's just not, practical.
Did anybody see those pictures out of Chicago recently during their cold snap? They had a parking lot where it's all Tesla cars charging.
Well,
They couldn't be turned on for days.
yeah, and then the other thing
Batteries
is
froze.
apparently the range in the winter is a lot less, and then, in the summer. I think that it was almost nearly 50% less range, so it just isn't practical now for, police service. And I think the hybrid is a nice compromise, is that you're getting both the, ability to have the car function on, an electrical charge, electrical battery. And then the gas engine supplements that, the brakes also, recharge the batteries. So it gives you, kind of like the best of both worlds.
I've had I mean, I'm obviously not driving anything like what you guys are, but I've had a hybrid for 3 or 4 years. It is by far the most responsive car I've ever driven.
When I bought mine, so again, I have a button, so if I want to accelerate as fast as a non-hybrid would, I have to press a button for that. So it just skips the hybrid system, but everyone told me that, oh, at 100,000 miles, you have to replace your battery. It's going to cost you $2,000 and another $1,000 to replace it. And I'm well past 200,000
Say,
miles.
my
and
dad's at
not a problem with it.
210K on a 2010 Mercury Milan. The thing runs great.
So, yeah, no, I'm glad to hear it.
We're probably also not running police chases.
They go by my house fast. Route 80. Well, any other questions for police chiefs? Hearing none. Thank you, chief.
So thank you.
Sir.
Last year you stayed the whole meeting. You don't have to. But you are welcome to.
Last year I was also sitting at my house.
You were remote and I realized you were there and I started to think,
I think we all
I
were.
think, was he waiting?
Right.
Is he waiting for me to dismiss him?
If you're good, I'm good. All right,
You
thank
have a
you.
wonderful
much,
evening.
sir.
Thank you.
Have a good night, Chief.
Good luck.
Okay, big spender.
So to address this year's request, I did ask you if we could move the Rigid Hull inflatable boat out at least another year. A couple of reasons behind that. One is they're redoing the Idina boat ramp. And so we want to reevaluate what is the appropriate vessel to use. And we just a week or two ago, Kyla Bouchard sent us over the plans for that ramp. So that's going to be an ongoing project throughout the next year, is to evaluate what we need and then if we can find it, frankly. What we are leaving is the $75,000 for the parking lot repaving at Station 2 for Lane. That is original asphalt, vintage 1987, 8, right in that particular area. degraded significantly, especially down towards the lower part. And it's starting to just fragment, and come up, so.
I was there today.
It's clearly in need of some work.
I went in the in and out I didn't want to go around the building because anyone in there, if they're opening the bay with a truck coming out or got spooked by someone driving where he's supposed to, but I saw the damage out front. Just before we continue, I'm a little confused. I have that in our not funded column at 75,000, recommended not funded. And on the 5-year plan, I think I see that at 50,000.
50,000, I believe, is the other station.
Yeah, 50 is the other station, and that's 2027.
Oh, yeah, you're right. That's the, okay, sorry about that. It's Station 1,
Yeah, station 2 would be item number 14.
landing zone. Okay.
And a couple of little side notes on some of the stuff we've moved out. The generator is still fine at Station 1. And that paving, one of the discussion points was if we end up doing a police station up there, as well as some addition to the fire station, most of that is better served done at the time of construction. I mean, far better to take advantage of any cost savings you might see relative to the project size. And frankly, it's not in need at the moment.
All right, so wait a minute, I have the same question you do. That's on the not funded column on what I'm looking at too.
Okay, so last year, when Keith was doing his budget, he put the brush truck under not funded. Mark presented it anyway, and we moved it.
Okay.
So I give everyone the opportunity if they want to present something,
Understood, okay.
but
I think this is Keith's, this is the one you gave me. That shows the parking lot is funded.
So. Those are just the requests.
Okay.
I think behind it was responding to what you funded.
That's the one you sent me over.
This is,
Okay.
so these are everything in 25 and what's funded.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
No worries.
so we're saying it is funded?
Oh, yeah, 75 is,
Not-
well, you get 2025,
That's what the request is.
So you got-
Columns.
total request. And
This
then
is,
Here,
this
here,
is
here.
request in 25, and this is how, if it was funded. this
Okay.
would-
okay, so,
In the meantime, if we're not going to pursue that, what I noticed driving in there, on one side, the first side is coming from the intersection. It's pockmarked with a bunch of small potholes and cracks. You get up there, you can tell that it's along the seams, there are color differences. I didn't know if they had repaired or if that's the way they laid
yeah,
it out
they've
originally.
they've done a bunch of repairs. up
And
there.
I'm heading out the other way, just up at where the slope from the road up crest, there's, pothole about this size, this deep or so that, I don't know if it's kind of
Yeah, I
damaged
mean,
vehicle.
obviously, if it's not funded totally to balance everything else out, we'll make do for another year.
Can we throw some cold patch in there and
I'm
have
not gonna
somebody?
throw anything in. I'm gonna call the highway superintendent.
I say we, I say we, the town.
I'll do a lot of stuff for you, but I'm not doing cold patch.
Is that in the road or in the project?
So when you're at the road, both the entrance and the exit have a slope going up.
Yes, yeah.
If you're coming from the intersection, the second exit has the larger of the potholes.
Yeah.
The other one, I mean, they sell that stuff right down the street.
No,
They-
they-
they Lowe's.
The reason they ask is the road is the state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The parking lot is the town. If it's a parking lot, we'll fix it.
I mean, I imagine the employees know it's there, but a resident pulling in for something is,
Yeah,
got a
no,
brake
it-
tire
it
on
should
it.
be fixed regardless.
You could do that on a Saturday afternoon, chief, though. You could-
Yeah, I'll add to my
I got a
Out.
damper.
some dazzle.
I just recently did a patch on my driveway and Basil showed up at my house while I was doing it too,
Paul, and-
driving by.
reasonably so, he prefers to stay away from cold patch where he can help it. He'd prefer to, well, if we can get by till spring, he'll take the hot box and do it right, and that way it'll stretch it out for the time that we need to stretch it out. So
Okay.
it's fine. If we need to move it forward, to move it forward to balance this out, it's fine.
He said you can also throw some of that repurposed, reprocessed asphalt in there so no one sinks in your tires. If he has any left, but. All right, no, that was my concern. Said I figured that's a can, I guess we could kick down the road, not that we want to, but to stay in budget. But those holes are bad and getting worse and, they're at least temporarily patchable. All right, sorry.
So that was it that we had to address for this year. The other thing, I say things, multiple things, DOE payments for the vehicles that we have outstanding. So that would be engine one, which is still on order. That's been delayed. The original contract was for 570 days. They notified me, actually, they didn't notify me. I asked a couple of months ago what the situation was, and it's delayed for just short of another year. So we won't see the truck until probably sometime December-ish in 24, hopefully.
Which truck?
Engine one.
Okay, the one we ordered, yeah.
So.
The one you have is the temporary one you bought. For what was it, like
I've got,
7,500?
I've got a couple temporaries now. One we
Okay.
bought, one I got from Greenwood because we're having an issue with engine three. Needed a transmission, one of the other ones. So,
I was gonna ask you about that later.
Greenwood was good enough to give us an engine, obviously, because they were delaying our plan to replace engine one by the production time. But there is nothing with these production times that you can do. They are what they are. One of the conversations that somebody had with me was, what if you just cancel the contract because they're late? Well, that's fine. It sounds good. But you then go to another manufacturer who's got an 850-day delivery time. So there's no benefit to that. They're all experiencing delays. One of them is 48 months out on an engine and 48 to 60 months on a lattice. So we can see how that's going with fire apparatus.
So we replaced
That's it, is what it is.
brand X with an E1. That was engine one.
Yeah, so the 2013-14 Ferrera that was in deplorable condition was taken by E1 in trade for the new engine. The best thing to do was get it out of here before somebody get hurt with it, frankly. We bought a 1996 E1 for $7,500 from Yarmouth that was in great condition. We did a little bit of work to it, but not a lot. And we run that as the third engine. So engine two and engine three, the remaining E1s, the 2003 and the 2004 respectively, are the primary engines.
Yeah, that was my question. I saw that engine 3 was an E1. And part of the reason that for going to an E1 to replace the Ferrera was that we had an E1 that was still doing quite well,
Yeah.
and it was older. So what really, if nothing changed, when we get the one from the factory, we would have 3 E1s until you replace engine 3, which I'm guessing you're looking at another E1.
Yeah, that's been a good, consistent, solid, middle of the road manufacturer. The prices are, as much as the prices appear ridiculous, and I agree. They're as reasonable in the industry as they get.
Now, I saw the FinCom meeting recording from 110. You were looking for a reserve fund transfer to replace, rebuild the transmission.
So what we did was you sent engine three, that's done. Actually, we'll pick it up tomorrow. We sent engine three over to ATG in Rainham. They pulled the old transmission. They purchased a Weller rebuild, installed that, road tested it. It's all good. So we pick it up tomorrow and then they'll take the remnants of the old transmission and do whatever it is they do.
And that doesn't extend the life of that. I mean, you've got it on, was it 2027?
Yeah, no, so keep in mind what we're looking at. I think this is really important for everybody that's buying larger equipment apparatus. What you see is the date we need it. And there's certainly conversation to be had relative to order dates. And I'm not just speaking for ourselves, it's for anybody, for water, highway, anybody that's buying heavy equipment. Most of your delivery times are approaching 27 months minimum now. So one of the reasons, and I know Carl and I have had a few conversations about leasing, and I can respect his position on leasing, but what leasing allows you to do is order, even if you don't stop paying for it, it allows you to order the vehicle. And then you receive the vehicle at the time when you schedule to receive it. If you wait and pay cash for it, you order it, you have the cash in hand, you wait 27 months.
Yeah,
So
so
there's a
remember
lot
from
of
last
juggling.
year. If we have the lease, we don't actually have to pay anything. But without the lease, they need to know as a municipality that we've
Right.
approved the spend. Then they can issue the VIN number and a work order and it gets in line. And then it's, however long it takes.
So that's just that's just a side on leasing. I mean, one of the downsides to leasing, of course, is you're paying a percentage of money on leasing. One of the upsides is you're saving the price increases.
And that's what I was gonna say. I mean, so one of the things we looked at, and we always look at them. Right now. We can lease a vehicle, and obviously the interest rates have gone up. But the inflation factor these vehicles are seeing on a yearly basis, even with the interest rates at 7 or 8%, it's still cheaper than the inflation factor of 7 or 8%.
Leases, they're always gonna concern me, but I think when it comes to fire engines and tower ladders, it's,
Yeah, leases currently are running about 5% plus minus. Cost increases on the apparatus is somewhere between 7 and 8, as Keith said. So, you know, when you order, you lock in pricing and so forth. So there's certainly some good discussion to be had when you're buying big equipment.
it also means more and more of our capital plan is paying off prior leases, which gives us less flexibility to deal with what's happening now. And I'd like to see us do more capital stabilization in terms of funding that and having it available for these sort of things when they come up. It's not gonna happen in a year.
Yeah, we had a conversation, I don't, were either of you watching at least part of FinCom, because we had another recurring conversation last night about the issue where there is a very steep drop off in the last 4 to 5 years in terms of the percentage of the bottom line budget that is going to capital related purchases and debt service. And that is not changing a lot of the underlying number. And if we start to run into more headwinds, that is got the potential to cause us some problems other ways. So I hear what you're saying, and it's.
Yeah. And I was listening to the meeting. My wife had it on the computer. I was making dinner at the same time, so I may have missed that part, but every time I hear the word capital, I try to zip over.
So that was engine one. Obviously, the tower lease, that's ongoing. The brush truck, update on that. That was ordered. The chassis is slated for production in 2024. I don't have a specific production date. I've had a couple speculations, but I'm not gonna share speculation because we just don't have anything solid. The 2 ambulances, the remounts that we're moving forward with, one chassis has been built. And the other half chassis I believe has not. So one of them is built and supposedly shipped. The other one has got an assigned VIN number, so I'm assuming that usually means it's a few months out.
You see on the ambulances? Now,
So-
I thought they were gonna look at, did they determine they had to rebuild the chassis? Because I thought they
You don't
were,
rebuild any chassis, you replace the chassis.
or I'm sorry, replaced, because I know they were gonna certify it if they said they thought it would last.
So what you do is you take the old chassis out from under the box, you do the work you need to do on the module. We typically do with a remount or repaint it, remove the corrosion, repaint it, and replace high-use hardware, which will be hinges on the 2 rear entry doors and the side entry door, hinges and latches. Those are the frequent parts, or the wear parts, I should say. Box is reassembled on a new chassis. It goes and it's delivered as if it was a new ambulance. We did contract with the original equipment manufacturer for the remounts. They extend numerous module-related warranties and some other work if you go with them. So the extension of the electrical warranty and some others makes it well worth it to go with them. And they know their trucks, frankly. They know, what plugs into what and what goes where. And to save a couple of $1,000s by going with an aftermarket group it's not good business at all in the long run. We did switch from Ford to Dodge chassis. If that makes any difference to you or interests you. It was availability. The Dodge would allow the regional dealers, so your average Dodge dealer can order an ambulance chassis. So the deal that we have to go through that represents the manufacturer, PL Custom, ordered the 2 chassis through a Dodge dealer in Mendon. And they go through the normal order cycle for an independent dealer. If you would order either Ford or the Dodge chassis through the quote unquote manufacturer programs, they go on a list, and when they make them, they make them. And Dodge seems to support, for some reason, the regional dealers a little better. And so that obviously was effective because one of the chassis is en route. No significant changes to the module. They do have to change a couple of the chassis mounts that are on the box. Very easily done to go on the Dodge versus the Ford. And the Dodge comes with a Cummins motor and a reliable transmission, so I didn't have any problem doing that at all.
Who gives you this information that tells you that if you go through a dealer that it's faster? I mean, you had to learn this somehow. Is this trial and error? Is it-
No, God, no.
Rodeo?
I try not to do anything this costs trial and error. No, I've been doing this a while, let's put it that way.
Right.
He also has an
So that's
amazing
fine.
memory.
So the other thing is I have a lot of contacts and I use those. So I'll get we have a very good dealer for the ambulances for PL Custom, New England Fire Apparatus. And I have a good sales rep, so he'll tell me the information, I'll back check it, quite frankly. I've got enough contacts to reach out to in the industry after 30 years that, you know,
Has it been that long? You're only 39.
yeah,
You
right.
started young.
This is year number 40 for me
He can tell you
here.
in all the towns in the region, how many brush trucks they have, what they've numbered them, why they numbered it, who was the chief when they bought it.
Carver has the better brush trucks, right?
Tell you what year it is.
They have 4,
They
right?
do. They do. They paid attention.
I do. I was. I had some guys over servicing my water filtration system for my home well. I think I may have told the story before, and one of them was talking to the other, "You find the news on that fire yet?" I said, what fire?" He says, "Well, we were on the way over here and there were brush trucks in Carver going towards what must have been a brush fire, and the chief speeding off after him." I said, "They have 4 brush trucks. How many they sent?" "All 4 of them."
Oh, that was the one down the state forest, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
No, just on the transmission, you said it was reliable. Which brand was that one?
it's a Weller rebuild, it's built by, rebuilt by. a
Because
company
I've heard
that's-
Dodge on the, at least on
Oh,
the
I'm sorry.
consumer side, they
Which
have
transmission we talking about? Engine 3's transmission or the
the
ambulance?
ambulance.
The ambulance transmission, I cannot remember honestly who builds a transmission for the Dodge. But it's made it up with a Cummins, and I've checked pretty much the people that are using Dodge locally. Duxbury's using 3 of them, Hanover's using them. There's several around that I've checked with for reliability and so forth. Because I won't say I was a Ford guy, but it's been a standard chassis for us is the Fords. And yeah, you worry a little bit about getting away from them, but everybody said the Dodge has been super reliable.
Yeah. I know on the
So,
retail
I'm
side,
comfortable
cars
with
and trucks, they've had problems with transmissions before. You know, the Jeeps always had great engines. but the
Everybody's got
transmission
trouble
went
with
downhill.
something.
Yeah. I was just curious.
And the more electronics we keep throwing on top of this stuff, the more problems and the problems are fun.
Sensors and buttons.
Something to keep in the
computers.
back of your mind, not to extend your meeting too long, but the engine that we're gonna be looking for somewhere around 26 to be actually arriving 27, 28, will have the 27 revision of the diesel exhaust system, the new diesel exhaust system. Feds are requiring or have implemented apparently some regulations that change the construction of the diesel exhaust system on the truck. They're speculating right now the cost of that change, depending on the motor you buy, will be between $50,000 and $100,000 per vehicle. Plymouth's recent engine they just purchased, it's a nice truck, not well optioned, it's pretty straight water in, water out pump. It was $925,000. Just to keep in the back of your mind, that's.
Naturally, there'll be federal funding to cover the
Yeah,
cost
good
of that,
luck
right?
with
Yeah.
that. You know, and I mean, it's everybody's frustration because not only is it more money, but it's longer period of time to get it. And the allocations for Cummins Motors that will lead up to that 2027 model year are diminishing by the day because everybody's anticipating the 27 model year, so they're grabbing allocations. And once Cummins runs out of allocations, they'll run out of allocations, and then you start on the allocations that are post 27. So just a tidbit if you're interested.
Going back to the fire truck, you said that when the new frames get a new VIN number, does that mean that when the trucks come back, they're rated as a newer vehicle?
Yes. Yep. So in the eyes of the registry of motor vehicles, it will come as a 20X whatever.
Right.
Whatever the chassis is, so the new registration will reflect that. The module, because of the way the state Office of Emergency Medical Services worked, what they call it the Star Life certification for the module will list the original mount and it will list a remount on the ID plate. So the module has to be identified as a remounted module for the state. But for the RMV, it comes back as whatever the chassis is.
Thank you.
Anything else about trucks and ambulances?
You're not, this whole environment has just created stress for you folks, us, because we're talking about now, when you look at 27, we've been used to saying, okay, we order it 9 to 10, 12 months later, the truck shows up, you check the box and you move on. But now I think everybody's gotta be concerned with these lengthy delivery times. Paul and I talk about this every day. It seems every time we're together. The challenges, I mean, his freight line is very similar to what we're doing with the brush truck. I mean, they just wait and wait and wait. We're fortunate enough now we can get galvanized frames on the fire apparatus. They cannot get galvanized frames on the commercial chassis. So, you know, his corrosion issue is gonna remain, ours is not.
He's got issues, I know, with, at least with some of the trucks we replaced, manufacturers going out of business.
Hmm.
Is that an issue for fire, where you can always get parts or whatever? Generally.
So you can.
I know there's a lot of custom.
You can
fires.
get parts, but a lot of the parts, like we're seeing the transmission cooler for engine 3, which is an 04, is back ordered for 60 days. So we ended up flushing and reusing the transmission cooler that's in it. But once that transmission cooler comes in, we'll shoot it back over to HEG and replace the cooler. But it was more imperative that we get the truck back in service. So yes, parts are available, but they are ridiculous lead times.
Just going over to the boat. Do you normally keep that in the water all year round, or do you
The
launch when
rigid, the one we wanted to push off, the rigid hull inflatable, yeah, it's usually kept in the water, but one of the things that, again, we really wanna digest is what that Idina is gonna look like in terms of where that ramp ends up. Is it necessary to keep a boat in the water? Is it not necessary to keep a boat in the water? The angle of that ramp may put us out a little further. I've had some conversations, Tyler's well versed on that. May put us out far enough that it's not as much necessary to keep it.
Yeah,
in the
I
water.
asked if they were gonna widen it so that more boats can go in at a time, they said based on the usage, that
Yeah,
wasn't necessary,
for
but
us,
with the pitch, I can understand how,
Right, for us-
your boats are off to the left,
the
right?
width isn't a big deal, because you sort of lay out if
Yeah.
you need to do it quickly. But the angle and where that lands the boat in terms of the water will definitely make a difference in what boat we buy. So that's left to another year. I guess is the best way to put it.
And just out of curiosity, so this, just thinking about it now for next time, is a rigid hull inflatable, what application, is that used for like water rescue, or what? You do
Yeah,
any, you put out any fires from the
Water,
water? with
water
that,
rescue
or-
dive and fire extinguishment. One of the conversations we've been having relative to the boat as well has been fire extinguishment. The rigid hull inflatables are obviously rubber-ish or something of that construction. I'm not, nor is Doug, who's my dive master, completely comfortable that that's the smartest boat to use. This is an old Coast Guard boat, the one that's currently in there, so you take what you can get at that point. But to purchase new, if we choose to do that, there are some other options. There are the, what looks like a rigid hull inflatable that's actually foam, covered foam. There's
Wow.
a few other options out there. Flat bottom aluminum, there's just a ton of options. And as I said, we're not even close to ready to make a recommendation, so.
Okay.
Anything I tell you about the boat would just be in conversation. We don't have any real, solid plan.
Yeah, I mean, I knew we had boats, so I haven't heard of, I know there's been a couple of water rescues maybe in the past or something, but I haven't heard of anything recently.
Yeah, the boats are, that's that tool we have that, you need it when you need it, but when you need it, there's no substitute.
Mhm. And lastly, you have an ARPA funded station alerting system. Which station is that for?
Stations 1 and 2.
Oh, okay.
What happened was we have alerting systems. It's basic. Try to be as basic as I can. I apologize. The alerting system, when they receive a 911 call, there's certain buttons you push to alert the stations to respond to the particular call. The two systems we have are vintage 1980, let's say 1980s and 1990s respectively. Both of those, the amplifiers were dying, the speakers are quitting. We had an old system that activated bells based on a radio tone. That's not working, so on and so forth. So when we reached out to the original companies, we found some of the companies don't exist anymore. And some of the parts aren't available anymore for the other components, and it was most reasonable to replace it with a system made by a company called Bryx, BRYX, based out of Detroit, Michigan. They originally developed this system in conjunction with Detroit, Michigan as kind of a side project for notifying the stations in Detroit, and kind of they went national with it. Around here, Bellingham the regional dispatch center in Foxborough that does several towns out of Foxborough, as well as Wareham Fire, all have the brick system. And they are all loving it, frankly. They all love the system. It can be a complicated system with regards to setup, do a lot of work on the front end. It ties into our CAD system, our computer aided dispatch system, so that when the dispatcher types in a call, I'm trying to simplify, I apologize. I don't want to get too technical because this system can get really technical. The dispatcher hits send and it dumps the call, whatever they've typed into the brick system. The brick system knows by location that was received from the 911 through CAD where you're going. It also now knows based on the dispatcher what they entered, what you're going to. So while the dispatcher is still taking information, they've already dispatched the call because that system announces the call to both stations, turns the lights on at both stations. You can go as far
Like, you
as.
can't tell which station to deploy. In other
You
words,
can't, we
if
can
you're
set it
at
up.
Smith's, if
I
you're
don't do that.
No.
You can set it up for notification for individual stations based on districts and so forth, but I don't do that. I want both stations aware of a call.
Okay.
So it dumps to both stations. It will turn lights on different colors. If you've been to Lowe's, you've seen these new LED bulbs, 10 different colors. Well, the system allows those bulbs to come on, red for fire, blue for medical, however you want to set it up. It's a pretty neat system. But once you get over what we call the overhead, the speakers is a computer generated voice. It's very human. It's amazing. That tells you where the call is, what it is, and what should go to it. The stations will acknowledge it by touch screen. They just touch the screen, acknowledge, and the dispatcher is aware that the station, even if they're still taking information, that the stations have received the call and are en route, and the apparatus then signs on the air over the normal radio frequency. And any updates from the time period between when BRICS was activated to notify the stations and when the apparatus is responding and given to the apparatus that's
and
responding.
this integrates with everything that needs to, right?
Yeah, like I said, there's a ton of upfront work to do with the CAD transition and all of that, but it really is a really, really good system. I have to say, it's a state-of-the-art system, and everyone using it speaks so highly of it, but they're emphatic that the key to success with this is setting it up well.
And that'll reduce your response time potentially, right? Get there
It should,
faster.
it could reduce the response time a little bit because you're gonna get that minute or so perhaps, that dispatch would normally be waiting to hang up the phone and push the appropriate buttons.
Now, I've seen, the pictures of the people working at the stations, they seem to be around one of those benches or desks that, like this with all the different dials, I mean, is that what we're talking about?
You've been to our dispatch center, right? At the police station?
I've been in there, yeah.
Yeah, so that's been, I don't know when you were in there last, that's been upgraded.
Last time they dragged me in, Mark.
Okay, so that's been upgraded significantly with a new touch system, the AvTech system for dispatch. We've taken all those old buttons and stuff that was failing out of the console, and we installed a 2-station AvTech dispatch system, which integrates with the radio system.
Mhm.
That is working fabulously. That was, again, done with ARPA funds. So that set us up, or put us in a good spot, along with our red alert computer-aided dispatch system, to be able to integrate bricks. Had we not done that, we probably would not have been able to move forward to use this brick system. So everything's, our planning really worked out well. Everything's integrating the way it should. Like I said, tremendous amount of work, but it's paying off because it's working, and that's the goal, right?
How many emergency calls does the station receive?
3,057 in 2023.
8 or 9 a day.
Yeah, 8.3 a day.
Averages are
Yeah.
a little tough for you guys to manage.
Yeah, and of those 3,057, it's about a little over 1,400 are double hits, 485 is triple, and it goes down from there. So that's, when I say double and triple, that means simultaneous calls.
Do your calls from mutual aid go through the system, or somebody have to pick up a
So
manual
call from
phone?
mutual aid is done through the county mutual aid system. So in the AvTech system at dispatch, there's a county control channel 4, and they just touch it and transmit and call county control requesting whatever it is they need, whether it's a working fire assignment, second alarm, mutual aid ambulance. And over county channel 4, they tone the particular town or towns that are going. and then announce, I'll say second alarm in town of Kingston, the response is as follows, and they'll go Plymouth Engine 7, Duxbury Engine 2, and they'll go down the list, and then the station's acknowledged and the apparatus is responding. They'll assign a mutual aid channel. We have several of them, but they'll assign the town a mutual aid channel. And they'll say, Kingston operate on mutual aid channel 4, not 4, 3, I'm sorry. And the incident commander has a choice whether we use the mutual aid channel or our responding mutual aid partners switch over to our channel 1 or 2. We usually stay on channel 1. It's easiest because your initial responders are all on channel 1. So that's usually what we do. The mutual aid channel, we'll put cover companies on the mutual aid channel. That way if they get in-town calls, and dispatch can work with that second channel with no problem. That's part of that tech system, is they'll be able to use multiple radio frequencies.
So many complexities in the fire department.
I'm curious about the double and triple thing. So if you've got out of 3,000 calls, of what that includes 1,400 that are.
Right, so out of the 3,057 calls, I'm gonna use some round numbers.
Fine.
1,450, let's say, are simultaneous calls. Of that 1,450, 485, I just happen to know the numbers. 485 would be 3 simultaneous calls ongoing, and then we go down from there. When you get to storm years, like we had a recent storm, you'll see the 7, 8, 10, 12 range. That's what we call stack calls. So if we get a report of a wire down, it's not a priority, we'll stack it. So that's why during a storm year, you'll see our stats go well into the 10s or 12s. That's not a common occurrence. That's just a storm-related call stack.
So what does that break for in terms of distinct incidents or distinct responses that you
How do you-
guys have to make?
So we have to make 3,057 responses,
That's fine.
right? Of those 3,057, 1,400 times we had multiple calls. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. There we go.
And then of those 1,400 times, within that 1,400, 485 were 3 simultaneous calls, and the number goes down.
So if a tree takes down wires across the road, do you guys have to respond to that? To
If we get a-
protect the highway, electrical people doing their,
So if we get a 911 call, we respond to it as a hazard investigation. When we have storms, what we do is we prioritize calls. We'll have either myself, the deputy, or one of the ship commanders will take dispatch, and they'll assign priorities to the calls. So if we have, somebody having chest pain and a down wire, the chest pain is going to be a priority call. The down wire is going to get stacked. So when you look at our stats, you'll see that down wire call will run into the 10 or 12, whatever area. So it'll be a stack. But yes, we have to go for call. It's just, we have to.
Any other questions for the fire chief?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anytime.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a great evening.
Thank you, sir. Oh, yeah, you don't. What's that? Oh, yeah.
So the what? Okay, Keith. Capital improvement plan.
Yeah.
You didn't do that last time. You went to wage and personnel.
So I'm sorry, what do you want me to do?
You were about, well, I put on the CIP review.
Yeah.
And if there's anything else that you wanted to cover on the financial update, or if anyone had any other questions, we went through this.
Yeah.
You got to the end, I believe, before
Yes,
you
I
had to
did.
leave.
Yep.
For the capital improvement plan overview. Let's see. Starting to get pages now, duplicates all the changes. We were going to cover the IT change in price, but we've done that already, so we have the presentation. I have some questions, but I didn't know if there's anything you wanted to go through. Okay.
I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay. Now, you and I talked, I still see it on the updated
Mhm.
Spreadsheets. I guess guys can weigh in if they want to. The tree removal at the Adams and Reed buildings seems like maintenance to me. That's not, to me, doesn't fall under our definition of capital.
Okay.
I realize we don't eliminate that cost, but you know, we shift it, but I don't think that's something that we need to look into. If the trees
Okay.
are overgrowing the buildings, that, to me, it seems like an operating expense, or
Okay, I will remove that.
I don't want them to feel like, hey, you know, the tree's gonna take out a window or a building or a car in the parking lot. They shouldn't have to wait to go through capital. Now, that would only leave for facilities, the tile flooring replacement, which I think you've elected not to, or recommended not to fund.
Mhm.
So I don't know if that,
I thought we were going to carpeting someplace
that was last year.
yes.
This is, I think,
So what-
A different.
In the building out here, you've got tile floors in most of the common areas. And, we're seeing some of those tiles are lifting and breaking. Here and there, so we replace to repair what we can. I don't think it's an immediate need, but at some point,
It will be.
it's gonna need to be addressed. There were just other things that, in my humble opinion, were more important, but they were more immediate than the flooring.
okay, so if the facilities director, what's his name again?
Rob,
But last name. Forget.
what's Rob's last name?
Yeah, forget.
Oh, so do I.
I'm sorry.
Cuoco.
Didn't mean to put you on the
Yeah,
spot.
so like Kaylee. Yeah, Kaylee Cuoco.
Cuoco?
They're related.
Yeah, Kelly, I looked this in.
Well, Mr. Rob doesn't want to come in on the night I suggested to you, and you know, unless he wants to push for the tile floor, I'm okay with it.
Okay.
Or if he comes up with something else he needs. I see on the police station, we're back down to $1. I think we had said we figured it would be 20 million by the time it comes around, but I don't know what the status is on that.
So, the issue that we're having, is twofold, really. And I think one's more challenging than the other. There is, we are, the committee, is recommending putting the police station up next to the central fire station on Pembroke Street. To site the police station, we need an additional 3-ish acres. Or an acre and a half.
We need a total of about 3.5.
That's what I thought. Sorry, thank you. Most of those 3.5 will come from our budding neighbor, hopefully, which is Eversource. They move slower than we do, so it's been a bit of a challenge. The other piece, there's the spot on Pembroke Street near the, I'm not sure what direction, but further, as you're driving out of town, at least the fire station on the right hand side, just beyond that, there's a piece of road that is almost like a long triangle that the state owns, and they've probably owned it forever. They probably had it when they were designing the road. There's no longer a need. So we have reached out to the state. We've asked them if they would be willing to part with that piece of property. And there's some interest and willingness. We're working our way through the bureaucracy of both organizations. It's taking longer than I had hoped, I think, and everybody hoped, frankly, but Mark has been the main point person for the town, trying to work with Eversource and DOT to see if they're willing to try to get them to provide the land we need so we can build that police station. That's where things stand.
So we're looking at it like a couple, it seemed like a year ago, maybe the attitude was, it could be just a couple of years before we break ground on something, and it now looks like it's.
I mean, again, I hope as we're sitting here a year from now, we have a number, we're bringing it forward to town meeting for some consideration, but we're ready to move. We just need the property to be able to build a building that's gonna last in this community for decades.
And I think that's what we'd all like. Sometimes I do wonder though, if we should do some facilities work on the existing building, if it's going to be years and years and years, because there are some real problems there. I'm sure they would say, hey, if you do that, you won't want to build a new one, but if we don't do something, we're
I think,
trying to move along with something that doesn't work.
I think there are some basic necessary repairs that will have to be made in the short term.
Would that come out of stabilization? Because there's nothing in print about that. Right?
It won't come out of stabilization. We'll have to find money in the operating budget, or oftentimes there are warrant articles that were approved in prior years where I'll just give you an example. We want to buy a phone system for $60,000. It ends up being $58,000, $2,000 left. We'll go back to town meeting and ask to repurpose that $2,000 for, maybe in this case, making some repairs to the police station.
Any grants for that kind of thing?
Not maintenance,
All right,
not maintenance.
yeah, I was just curious. I don't think we have a big year in 2027 in fire. I think we kind of covered that.
Yeah, and we'll massage that as best we can, with the chief when we get closer.
And I meant to ask the police chief, he was here, but had as part of this discussion. Do we know why the cost of the patrol vehicles goes up and down year to year? It averages on the upward side over time for the most part. I mean, well, the highest year is 2027, but 2030, we're, like $4,000 less. I wasn't sure if he.
I think it has to do with how the vehicles are equipped. Some of them may not have light bars and things of that nature because they're being deployed for different purposes.
Okay, so he already knows which vehicle he intends to replace then.
The
I
other
figured
thing
most of those are standard, except for the, the trucks or
No,
whatever.
because you'll see some that don't have lettering, some that don't have light bars, things of that nature, so there's different expenses. One thing I just would like to mention, on the fire equipment, and I think it's 27,
Yep.
is the last year that the town of Kingston is responsible for paying. We've got, the town of Kingston bought a ladder truck, leased a ladder truck. The reason, in part, of that ladder truck being the size of it is because of the apartment complex at Kingston Collection. Kingston Collection provided funding towards the cost of that ladder truck to meet the needs that were required to be met by them. So fiscal 27 is the last year that
It's,
we don't have funds for. 28 and 29, we have the funds we need from the contribution from Lexington to fund. So while the lease payment is shown here, we'll have an offsetting revenue for those last 2 years, so there won't be any impact.
this sheet shows the tower ladder finishing in 2026, the engine one finishing in 2027. In addition to that, the backhoe ends in 2026 as well. That's a smaller chunk of change, but so you're right. If you look at it in that way, those payments are no longer dedicated to that apparatus.
So that frees up some money.
Anybody else have any other questions this time on the capital plan?
How much of the lease payments are going towards the overall budget? A substantial amount of it.
So the way, and I guess I thought, at least in my mind, and I think it was done this way when I came 3 years ago and used it consistently for this. We have a capital stabilization account. That dedicates funding from two sources to fund what has funded leasing. We have been putting $100,000 a year from taxation from free cash into the capital stabilization account. In addition, the town a number of years ago voted to dedicate all of the meals taxes that are collected by the town to capital. So those two funding sources are completely funding the lease payments. And there's in the estimates that we've used moving forward in the next 5 or 6 years, there's sufficient funding in that capital stabilization fund to be able to handle the lease. are now obligated.
Which we've been using the lease of Wayne kind of like a stabilization for those things that are too hard to pay for with cash.
I understand that. So our goal essentially is probably to, as one lease is coming off, finishing, we want to start at least have another large.
Yeah, so I mean, the biggest issue, the biggest ticket items, obviously, are the fire department.
Right.
items. And so I think what Mark was trying to do is, you know, we've got 3 ambulances, how do we best pay for that, so we don't see spikes. Same thing with the fire apparatus. So if an engine, you know, we lease an engine for 5 to 7 years, we know it's gonna be good for significantly longer than that.
Right.
But we have 3 of them. So we wanna make sure that we do the best we can to level out the annual cost. In this case of leasing, so there's no spikes and no valleys.
I think a more accurate way to look at it, Wayne, is here we show the year we intend to place the order, 850,000.
Right, 27.
If you were
right?
thinking about this in terms of when we're paying, whatever that first payment would be made, you'd see that amortized year to year to year.
And we typically, at least, and it hasn't happened, I wanna say it's happened in the last 2 fiscal years, maybe the last one. I think frankly, in my mind, it's a smart thing to do. What we've done is, if we have leased a fire truck, and we know the fire truck's not gonna come for 18 months, to 2 years. The following fiscal year, we have budgeted for that lease payment. So we are paying down, we're not paying as much interest by deferring the first payment for a year or 2. We're paying the first fiscal year that we have to, and trying to minimize the overall cost of that.
I wanted to ask Mark a question, they neglected, the supply issue is supposed to get better, but is it?
Here's that's a super interesting question. Here we go. But the supply chain is, but the backlog isn't. So, yeah, let me move up here, it's easier. So what happened is, I'll give you an example of the supply chain issue slowed everything down. So now everybody used ARPA funds, CARES Act and everything, and they ordered apparatus. And what they ended up doing is creating such a large backlog with the manufacturers that even if the supply chain becomes normal, like E1 has a 1,500 truck backlog and they can build 40 trucks a month. Pierce in Wisconsin has, they're telling me now, almost 3,000 truck backlog. They can build more than that. So, yeah, so the challenge right now is speculating on pricing. You know, there's several of the manufacturers, E1's not doing it, but what they're doing is they're signing contracts for something that's delivered 4 years from now with an escalation clause. So the escalation clause is about 7% per year, and you're responsible for that 7% on delivery. So if they
That's a
quote,
problem to have if you're a manufacturer.
Yeah. Well, the executives need their bonus.
yeah,
That's crazy.
and so all the manufacturers are backlogged. PL Customs for a new truck, that was one of the reasons for our choice on the remounts, was working now with mid-26 for actually a production date for a new vehicle. But for the remounts, they take our robots, do what they gotta do. And if they have the chassis, it can be done probably this summer. It's a really, for you guys, I mean, I don't envy your thought process, it's a really difficult problem. Because you're looking at a cap plan that calls for a vehicle to be here in 20X, and it's to your delivery date. Would you like some good news?
Sure.
And?
Yeah. I'm just asking them. I'll think of some in a minute.
We're just about done the evening's agenda. That's good news.
The Vector truck,
Mhm.
did that get pushed back? Yeah, I think it originally went in at 500,000. I thought we would be dealing with that next year. It's now at 660. I could be wrong.
So I can't swear to this, but I don't believe I would have moved something in a Vector truck that's proposed to be acquired 4 years from now.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure if you said, I think I can make it last or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I know Paul's doing what he can.
I mean, I see that, I'm pretty sure it was 500,000, now it's 660, so it's obviously something he's been updating his position on it. or working
Yeah,
with the
so
rep.
he's, we've had some, I think he's keeping an eye on what the cost of those are. He tries to update his numbers on an annual basis. One of the things that I think he's looking at, which I think makes all the sense in the world, is the water department uses our vacuum trucks. Uses the streets and parks vacuum truck to deal with some of their issues, and they're more than welcome to do that. It's the most cost-effective way to do that, but I think what we're gonna do is talk to the water commissions about assigning a percentage of that cost based on usage to the
I'd
water.
say we
department.
should lease it to them. It's an enterprise.
Well, what we would do is we would say, if we leased it and they used it 25% of the time, and I think that's probably high, we would ask them to pay 25% of the lease.
All right, forgive my ignorance. What's a Vector truck?
The Vector truck is a truck that will suck out drainage structures,
Catch basins.
catch basins, things of that nature. The water department uses it oftentimes if they have a clog or a partial clog in their water pipe, they can use, it's a huge truck that sucks. And they'll use that to suck out things that might be blocking portions of the water, things of that.
And the state requires that every so many years, they have to clean out a certain percentage of the catch basins and verify or something that they've done that. I've seen it. I saw it at the highway barn, didn't know exactly what it was. And then I saw it being used this past year and along Elm Street, they were cleaning the catch basins or whatever they do.
It's preventive
expensive truck.
maintenance to, keep the length of the road, to extend the length, use of the length of the road.
And prevent flooding.
Right.
That was kind of what I was.
Yeah, it's kind of obvious once you know, right? Last year, and I don't see it on the plan, we looked at the potential for an electric vehicle utility truck for primarily facilities. That's off. Okay. And then also the glass enclosure on the COA patio.
They've chosen not to go that direction.
Okay, I just
At
figured
this point, I think.
if you would recommended not funding, we heard the presentation, we didn't fund it. What year would it have been?
There was no, so there's, a couple of things that were on the CIP plan last year. Either for last year or future years that aren't on the CIP plan that you haven't funded. One of those certainly is the enclosed porch, if you will, at the Council on Aging. The other, which is a little bit of a concern to me, frankly, is we had $4 million in school.
That's, yeah.
That is not on there. And, I know they were looking at some other options with regards to repairs and things of that nature, but respectfully, if I was a CIP member, I might ask the school people when they come over what the status of their roofing projects are.
Yeah, I also noticed that as well, but I didn't make a note of it.
Especially because one of them, we were gonna get a better deal because it wasn't structurally bad, right?
Well, they have a new facilities manager for the
Mhm.
schools, I think, so I don't know if he's reevaluating, he or she, I don't know who it is, if they're reevaluating the options. So that's
Yeah,
good.
I'm
People
not
have
sure.
prior experience and they're like, I don't want to use this material. I'll talk to my rep I knew from a prior life and see if they can quote something. So we'll find out. I can also reach out to a member of school committee at some point, find out. The only other thing I had was, I'm gonna hold that because I think I should read up on it a bit more before I ask questions. Not necessary. Anybody else have any questions?
Not me.
All right, thank you, Keith.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Have a good night.
You as well.
Good job. It's lucky.
Back at 7:30 like this one.
Yeah, that's just one off.
We just have minutes.
But you're young. You can.
I am young.
You go home between,
I didn't. I will sometimes, but not tonight. I had stuff I need to be done for next week.
So we have minutes, you guys,
Yeah. I don't care what they say about you.
what'd you say, Dan?
it's all leave early tomorrow.
Anybody want to go through the meeting minutes? You want to postpone it to the next meeting?
I would prefer to postpone if we could.
Okay, there you go. Let's talk about future meetings. Keith, you weren't here when we went over this last time.
Yeah.
I kind of pulled the committee about the necessity for a field trip. And I think at this point, we're not really thinking there is. Because for those who've seen it,
Yeah.
they kind of understand what they're looking at in the photographs.
Fair enough. If
Um,
anybody has any questions or want to take a ride to see some specifics for this, feel free to let me know. I'm happy to.
Yeah, I mentioned, you know, if they wanted to see a water plant, that's a quick 15-minute walkthrough kind of a thing. I've never been to the wastewater treatment plant, but there's nothing on here that puts us in a rush to do that. But something we could just do if we wanted. Unless you want to go see some more fire trucks again.
I just want to ride on a new one.
Wait, I was gonna say, wait a little while, because you'll have something different to say.
They won't let me up on the tower lat. I asked.
You
I
once
said-
said if I take you up, I have to push. I don't know.
Well, they have it at National Night Out. I'm surprised they don't sell tickets at, you know, I'd climb the whole thing. Get up on the platform and
Might not be able to make it down.
that's gotta be a liability. Keith doesn't like liabilities. We lowered those legal fees in town, right? Isn't that what you guys were talking about last night? The legal fees came down?
Working on it, I think.
No, or
Projected,
liabilities or something, yeah.
yeah, projected. I don't know, you guys aren't quite to the end of that process, right?
No, we want to bid for legal services. The bids are due the 31st, which is next Wednesday. But I don't see a significant change.
All right, the next meeting is 2 weeks from yesterday, February 7th. I think we're looking at having recreation, facilities and schools, but I'm not sure if we're gonna need to hear from facilities. Schools has a bunch of projects that are not recommended for funding. Clearly want to ask them where the roofs stand, and they have a bunch of doors for the intermediate school. And 100,000, I think it's the main entryway. There's like 6 pairs of. Yeah, so it adds up.
That
Recreation.
building's not that old, though.
Yeah, maybe like it may be like a ADA regulation or something, you know.
Security issues too along those lines.
Right. Yeah. Just so you guys know, I think, so CPC, Community Preservation Fund. You guys probably know how it works, but Keith, what we automatically fund that 1 to 2% per year of the revenue?
So the CPC fund gets its funding through a surcharge, so to speak, at town meeting, through property taxes. Those include the town meeting. I don't suspect there's gonna be a tremendous number of projects this year because they spent a significant amount of money last year. So, you know, I know there are some smaller grant requests that have been submitted, but I'd be surprised if half a dozen funded.
Well, it's a large committee. Funding, as I understand what the state requires, is that the funding can go to projects for historical preservation, open space, conservation, affordable housing, recreation. I think that's it. So they have a representative of those boards. I think there's a representative from planning or at least a seat one. I don't know if they have one now. A representative from finance committee, which happens to be Carl Pike right now. And then several what they call citizen, really resident appointees. They go over these projects and prioritize them or qualify them based on the rules. I don't know exactly what they do. I tend to watch like one of their meetings every year. I caught the one on January 4th. During the meeting, they were talking about the rehabilitation of the 2 tennis courts at, well, they say behind the Reed building, but way out there by the Bailey Playground. And a member spoke up, who I've met, but I don't know him. His name is Nathan Hedberg. He said something about capital planning. And he was trying to make an argument, I think, that for the footprint of a tennis court, it's a lot less to maintain. He was looking at what it would cost per year to maintain, or what the I think it's 100,000. So looking at putting into it, it'd be like a 10 to 20 year, maybe 12 years, something like that. $146,200. So they would only get a certain number of years. He's looking at the cost per year. I think he might have been making an argument towards, you know, in open space, they spend a lot, or conservation, they spend a lot less on property maintenance, because you kind of just let nature run it, right? So when he was trying to make that argument, he said, well, we'll get to that one, or we'll leave that to capital planning. Now, I don't know if that's a phrase he's using for a process that they do. I don't think I've never heard them refer to their process as capital planning, or if he's looking for our recommendation, which we would provide anyway. So I'm going to reach out, I think maybe to the chair of that committee, and mention when we're having our meeting on that, which will be the next one, 2/7. So we should probably get a little analytical about that. Say, bring your calculators. FinCom. So they'll be looking for some recommendation. I don't know if they, what their timeline versus ours is, but like I said, I'm going to reach out to them. I'd like to take a close look at that if they're actually asking us to do so. That's just one member saying that. I talked to Valerie Massard, Keith. I think she wanted to say something with regard to some of the stuff planning's working on. So I told her when the DPW meeting was.
Sure.
Because her stuff's kind of overlays with the roads. I don't think they actually had anything for this year, but it's been some changes to other stuff. So we'll have her in then. That's all I have for future meetings. Anybody have anything? Any agenda items they want added? No? Okay. Anybody have any comments?
Move to adjourn.
There you go.
I'll
Have the
second it.
planning committee at 7:23 PM.